Okay, Jeff here. I'm in the car and I got all my music equipment out, so because I'm setting all up, kind of reconfigure things so I don't have to have that keyboard table behind me anymore. Because I did all my concerts are done from last week. So what I want to do is cover. Andreas, you've made a post here called "Slippery Slope." Unlearning versus forgetting on the artificial intelligence topic. So I want to kind of go over your points. I thought some pretty good points here, and we've got this is a fun time to be involved in all this, right? This AI stuff and all this stuff, the hype cycle that's happening, right? This is great. So the generative AI type makes that clear, that unlearning versus forgetting yet again. So AI leaders can help their senior management avoid repeating the same mistakes. The tendency of all history is to repeat the same mistakes. Just watch wars. I mean, I'm not saying war is bad. I'm just saying that the mistakes that are done, we don't learn from history. In fact, a lot of people don't. Actually, Americans are really bad at reading history because they've only had 300 years and they still can't figure out how to read history. Because they don't have history classes hard at 8th grade and 11th grade. And that's all there is. But, and I really think history is important to learn from the past and to learn how to deal with the current, present, and how to look at the future, right? I think it's really important to do that. And to look at, history is data. So if you don't analyze the data, you don't look at it, then you're not going to be able to deal with it in the present and for the future. So business value. Be as rigid as ever about qualifying use cases. A lot of people suck at doing qualifying. They just suck at it. I'm going to say it. And it's not just the business value of AI. It's in a lot of topics. And there are so many projects in which I refuse to work because it's the qualification process of, it sounds cool, but the qualification, is it actually valid? Is it viable? Can we actually do this thing? So, feasible. Is it even feasible? Is it viable? I mean, come on, folks. Aren't these some of the three concepts of just design thinking and anything? I mean, so qualifying is a really important one. Then commitment. And you said that commitment is a key one. Ideas are cheap, implementation matters. So much agree on this, Andreas. Like I said, I have refused probably more projects in my career than I've actually worked on. And I've said no. I said because the implementation that you're going to do isn't going to work. It won't. It's going to have these ideas, but if you can't, if it's not actually feasible and viable, don't do it. The desirable is easy to get. I mean, the desirability is so easy. Just make it look sexy, right? I'm kind of, whatever you do to put some bells and whistles on it, it's going to look sexy. It's going to look cool. But is it going to be feasible? Can you actually do it? And is it viable? Will it have a long-term, is the investment going to have some outcome? So implementation is a key thing. And AI is one of the risky things, right? Because we're looking at how to do things that are not based on, I mean, we are automating some things. We're inventing how to do it, and it's taking a different path than how humans we have social knowledge. I've already watch the video I've done on social knowledge in this series on AI. The missing part of social knowledge is what allows us to be able to predict what other human beings do. Because of social knowledge, because of conformism. Okay, I actually did another video. I actually put my video on conformism in this series. Probably not a bad idea. In fact, I think I'll do that. In fact, I'll just put it underneath this one. So if you're watching this video, just watch the next video in the series on conformism. And what that's talking about is how a lot of traditional, or whatever cultures, a lot of things that we think of as traditions, as organizations, as institutions, a lot of things are all about conforming to others. And that's how we can actually predict how others think because of our social groups, social knowledge, right? AI doesn't have that social knowledge, and that's why it's difficult to predict what it's going to do, because it's generating things not based on the conformism, right? I think this is key. Actually, I hadn't thought about that. But this is how we can predict how humans are. But this is why all our machine learning and stuff. Machine learning. I mean, you can teach the scripts. You can create the scripts to be able to make predicted analyses based on data, but you can't do it based on living experience, which is what like I said, conformism is the living experience. That's how humans make decisions based on their feelings, based on their ability to know how the other social groups, their different social circles, are going to react based on that. Why do I make decisions to do or not do something? Why do I choose to go do this or not do that? Because of these facts, these factors. So I think this is really important. And that's the whole thing, commitment, right? You want to commit to things that are going to be feasible and viable. And that's where we have to look at the feasibility aspect and the viability are fit within this conformism thing. So I think this is kind of an important thing to think about here. Information security, boy. I could spend 5 videos talking about this, but there are so many just automatic translation systems. I've been saying for years, many years, do not put any of your confidential content into an online translation system, folks. I've got to say this, my companies I work at, I have to tell my colleagues, don't put it in Google Translate or Microsoft. And I don't care if the thing says in the terms and conditions that even if you get a corporate account and all that, I don't trust it, because you're just giving stuff away. There's no way I'm going to put any of my stuff into it. And there have been a lot of companies that have had surprises when someone ran it through to translate it, and bam, you wonder why the next week all your features are being announced, because you're just giving your information away, right? Confidential information doesn't matter. This is why I've said in one or two of my videos in this series, I will not test Chat GPT. Well, I have on the majority of stuff I'm doing, because even my video series, I'm not going to publish it until it's out, right? So I'm not going to give any kind of stuff I'm working on. I'm not going to let anything indicate what I'm doing. Patent stuff, new ideas, article ideas. I'm not going to use it to write, because I'm writing stuff that's new, and I don't want to give the hint to the system anything I'm working on before it gets out, right? So I've done some Chat GPT on other topics that are just have no relation to anything else, that have no value to anything I'm doing, just for fun, right? But even that, some of that stuff is kind of new ideas that could generate. So I don't even want to give that away, right? It's factual accuracy. We've talked about this. This is the whole thing of, hallucination, if I recall correctly. This is the new word we're using for this, right? The whole thing of is authentic or synthetic, right? And then is it actually true, right? True information, which causes a lot of problems. And this is not the first time. This has been done with many other types of systems in the past too. Speech technologies, text technologies. This is not the first time. So this is just a new generation and kind of a new implementation of this. So what we have to do is, and this one's kind of interesting. When the funny thing is, when we started to get into, I remember when we had automatic translation. I'll talk a lot about this because there are so many parallels with this, right? Well, actually, if you think about it, generative AI in the text field, it's just natural language generation, NLG. That's what it is. And a lot of what we're seeing today is natural language generation, which is not new. It's been around for a while. And what happens is we've had the same thing in the textual translation field when we went from rule-based to statistics-based and then to neural-based machine translation. It started creating sentences that sounded so fluent, but there were inaccuracies in the thing. The actual terms were wrong. They were being translated completely wrong. But it sounded so cool. And so people took it because it sounded fluent. It sounded fluent. Didn't look like the past mistakes and the past of grammatical errors, which kind of gave some stilted kind of ways of saying things. But then, bam, it just sounded fluent. So, yeah, believe it. And then you start looking at it and you say, this aren't the actual meanings of the terms that are being translated. It just sounds cool, right? It sounds easy to read. If it's easy to read, it's good. Wrong, folks. So a lot of these are, so, I'm doing a little deep dive, but even you want to these little points with a bunch of, anecdotes. It's going to take you a few minutes, but these are key things that are making this whole AI hype cycle journey a fun one, because it's funny. It's really interesting to see how people are reacting to this. And it's seeing how people are buying into, in French, actually in French, we have this word. I asked my kid's mom, who lived in the States for 5 years. She's French, and we were sitting there. We were talking about a year ago on the phone when I was driving someone. I asked her if she knew what if she could figure out what the translation of the word gobe is. Now, gobe in French means to buy in. It's kind of like you're buying into some new idea and stuff, and you're doing it just because everybody else is doing it, and you're believing, and you're sucked into this thing. And we sat there for a few minutes while I was driving, thinking about this, and she couldn't think of the word of an equivalent in English. I think I came up with it later on. I can't remember what it is, but it was really hard to find this equivalent. And in French, we have this word for this, right? That is happening with the AI hype cycle right now. It's this, because it sounds so cool, because it's possible, and people are buying into this thing, right? As if it is the truth. And what it is just, it's really funny to see this. So if I come up with this, if I can find what that word is again, that we came up with the word driving, I don't remember what I said that word was, the English equivalent. So it's like this, it's happening, right? This gobe, people are just kind of caught until they're pulled into this thing. It's not that it's wrong. It's not, but it has some value. It's just they're entrenched with, I don't know what it is. I can't remember the word was. If I wanted to find that word, it's going to come out again here. But we need to, again, qualify the use cases. We need to indicate our commitment to these kinds of things. We need to look for the factual information here, all these kinds of things, that you're mentioning here in this post, right? And dealing with the information, security. And once we look at this from a very practical point of view, we're going to see where we should be doing it, where we should not be doing it. And I guess let's finish it up with my one of the things I say regularly, my 10 key values is learn to say no more than you say yes. And when you do that, you focus on the things you should be actually working on. Thanks for your time, Andreas. And then glad to be able to kind of comment on this. And there will be more videos coming on these kinds of things. Thanks so much.